Looking to source more vehicles and stay ahead of seasonal slowdowns? Kelley Blue Book Instant Cash Offer now has Offer Accelerator, a flexible add-on that unlocks extra trade-in leads from AutoTrader and KBB.com. Scale your acquisition strategy on your terms. Learn more at b2b.kbb.com.
Hey, it's Daily Drive executive producer Jake Neer in Detroit. On this bonus episode of the show, we'll hear more of the interview between Automotive News Europe managing editor Doug Bolduc and Volvo Cars CEO Hakan Samuelsson. If you missed the first part of that conversation, you can go back and listen to Tuesday's episode of Daily Drive. In this portion of the interview, they discuss what Samuelsson sees as the powertrain of the future and the role range extenders could play, as well as the automaker's relationship with its parent company, China's Geely, and what that means for the future of Volvo.
Long-range plug-in hybrids are built primarily as an electric car that has some combustion to charge the battery, whereas your first wave of plug-in hybrids were more so a combustion car that had a battery to assist. So is there a potential to take like a spa-based car with that sort of combustion first, electrification second, and then flip it into electrification first? Or is that just like engineering impossibility?
Nah, good idea. Let's look into that. No, I think everything is possible. So I think also, of course, from an economical point of view, from an environmental point of view, you would like to have a plug-in hybrid really being driven electric normally. Say 90% of the mileage should be done electric. I mean, then it's good for the environment, then it's a much more economical car to drive, and you avoid this filling up. It's filled up automatically every day. But you don't need to be very nervous. Suddenly I will drive a bit extra here and then I'm left somewhere with a flat battery. Then the engine kicks in. So I think you should see the future of the plug-in car is more to have characteristics of an electric car, but with a backup engine for while the first generation was just a combustion car which had batteries you could drive around some miles in the city, and that is really not the same thing. So I think a car of the future should be experienced as electric. And I mean, Volvo, we will have electric cars. I think long term they will be all electric. Short term, as a bridge, we need some electric cars with a backup engine, and that's what we call the second generation plug-in cars. And that's something, of course, we are looking into exactly how we're going to fulfill that, but I think that will be absolutely cars attractive for US, and of course we have to secure that we can build them in the US as well.
Yeah, because you bring up a good point, which is there is a rising interest in these, what we sometimes refer to long-range plug-in hybrids or range extenders. Basically, the idea, an electric car with a gasoline engine to help out charging the battery so that you don't have that situation where you have that flat battery. Range extenders seem to be growing in interest. People want them in China. People want them potentially in Europe and in the U.S. But like I said, you're only building them right now in China. So do you see a range extender sort of be expanding into basically a global product for you folks?
Yes, a longer range plug-ins, if you call it that, will definitely be something we need. I mean, if you go back 5 years in time, our ambition was to be all electric 2030 and basically have the plug-ins to cover that time till 2030 and then go all electric. I think what we now see is in some regions of the world we need this bridge to go maybe to 35, maybe coming close to 2040. So we need a second bridge, second generation, and they will be much more similar to an electric car, but with a range extender. I mean, there are various concepts how to have this extra range you could have with or without mechanical drivetrain to the wheels. So that will come, absolutely. But we will be ready 2030 with a really good lineup of all electric cars, and then we will have these backups. And for the backups, of course, as we don't have money without end, we will of course say, how can we do this backup cars or second generation cars in a smart way? And then of course we will look into, can we learn and take some parts from our Geely brothers, and in that way, in that respect is of course XC70 is one example. It could be sold in Europe, and for use we have to look twice and see how we can solve it there. But we have some ideas, so have something similar for America as well.
When we come back, more of this interview with Volvo CEO Hakan Samuelsson.
Inventory challenges, seasonal slowdowns. Kelley Blue Book Instant Cash Offer has the solution. Offer Accelerator. This powerful new add-on gives dealers the flexibility to source smarter and acquire faster. With Offer Accelerator, you can tap into extra trade-in opportunities from AutoTrader and KBB.com on demand. Choose the volume that fits your goals, scale up or down as needed, and only pay for what you receive. It's perfect for meeting seasonal targets, supporting campaign pushes, or filling inventory gaps. Dealers love it because it's simple, effective, and built for growth. Ready to accelerate your acquisition strategy? Visit b2b.kbb.com and request your demo today.
Like you just mentioned, there's that great opportunity to leverage, as you already have and you've proved with the XC60, the relationship with Geely. Some of the sister brands that you have in the Geely, under the Geely umbrella, are already bringing range extenders out into the environment. That means you don't have to necessarily start from scratch. You can use that as your foundation, correct?
And that's absolutely a good example of synergies. I mean, how can we face now the big challenges the industry is facing? We don't need to double invest both in electric and in long range. I mean, the bridges you need for 10 years. So of course, you should look into how can that be done smarter. Another very good example, which is getting clearer and clearer, is the software need to be divided more and more. If you look into in China, they need to have their own pilot assist or autopilot systems. They need to have infotainment, voice control. Very difficult to do with Google Translate. You need to really have local voice control systems. And then, of course, for us to develop that as well when we are developing for the West, and then we have to do it to China, would be very expensive. And then we could, of course, say, okay, Lynk & Co, Seeker, what do you have? And then I'm quite sure they have systems that we really can use for our local Chinese cars. Because the possibility to mix these software systems are gone. We need to really have a watertight firewall between these two worlds of tech restrictions reason. So that I think is something we just have to accept, but we can do that without getting a lot of extra development costs, which we would have to do, of course, if we did not have this connection with Geely.
And excuse me, would you say that because you can tap that knowledge base and that experience from the Geely brands that are in China, is it a potential to save billions? Because I don't know how much it would cost to develop something like that, but I can't imagine it's cheap.
Absolutely. I mean, there's enormous costs. I mean, you could think in a really advanced autopilot system that would work in China. I mean, that's not only 1 billion. That's a lot of money, and so I think that's a really good example. Only just having a voice control, which is really, really local, is also not cheap. You cannot just adapt something from Europe and think it can understand Chinese. So that is also an example. So I think in the future, the car industry will face a very tough competition as the Chinese now enter and take a big share of our global business. And I mean the car industry. They will put pressure on all of us, and then you need to be smart. What can we do really to lower our cost And I now mentioned two examples, local software in China, second generation hybrid. But the third example is, of course, a lot of hardware components we can do together and standardize and get high volumes. I don't remember the figure right now, but we discussed here this morning air conditioning compressors. I think we have something above 50 in the group. I think was even close to 100 different variants. And I mean, there's no reason why we should need more than 10. And of course, then the cost would, that's just an example. You could take any other example, brake calipers, brake discs, seat structures, which is zero jeopardizing any brand identity of Volvo. Is just better, lower cost parts. And that you can do only if you have a very close cooperation with somebody in China. Otherwise, if you just go there and knock on the door at the supplier, you will not do it. But we will, of course, together with Geely have a much stronger buying power. And if we start standardizing on the same part numbers, even more. And that's, I think, is the third example how we will face this new hyper competition, which I'm quite sure will come to us in the industry, not to Volvo only.
Volvo Cars CEO Hakan Samuelsson spoke with Doug Bolduc, managing editor of our sibling publication, Automotive News Europe. You can read more about that interview on autonews.com. Thanks for listening to this bonus episode of Daily Drive. We'll be back on Monday with a brand new full episode of the show.